Yeah, I'm excited to be here, guys. I tried to figure out how I could be there, because I love hanging out and talking shop, but we couldn't make it happen. I've asked Gary to move closer to a major airport, but he's not willing to do that. So in the meantime, excited to be able to talk to you guys and connect with you this way. I'm going to share my screen and just kind of work through a little bit of a PowerPoint, not because people love PowerPoint, but because there's a ton of stuff to share, and I really want to kind of keep us focused. At the end of this, depending on how you are with notes, if you want a copy of the slides, I'm happy to email those to you, and kind of just get into some of this stuff. I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, just south of Denver. Recently moved about 2 years ago from the Philadelphia area, where I lived for about 25 years. And so I've put into practice a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm excited about how I think this can help you personally, especially as you're talking about aligning with mission statements and things like that, but also how it can help your employees. So I'm going to go ahead and share this real quick. All right, so I'm talking about today about the career factors, and what I call it is kind of the business owner's toolbox, because I think there's so much in alignment with where you are, how you're moving your business forward, and what you hope to do with your employees, and really how essential they are to growth. That I think this really can be a way to understand engagement, retention, and hiring all in one. And I think that's a big task for business owners, because those things are often seen as different from each other. But I think that once we get through this, you'll have a better understanding of how thinking about career satisfaction in a new way can really help you tackle a lot of these different things. So with the career factors, our agenda for today, my goal is to end at what would be 3:15 my time, and have enough time for Q&A. But I'm totally fine with pausing and rabbit trailing whenever is helpful for you guys. But we're going to go through basically a little bit of a discussion of what I call the state of disunion, which is the workplace today. I'm going to introduce you to this new approach to engagement. I'm going to give you an opportunity to actually figure out what your career factors, your top 3 are. And then just explain a little bit about how you can actually take this type of information to your people. And so a lot of this is expanded on in a white paper that's going to be actually next week is being rebranded and retitled The Engagement Dilemma. But for now, The Manager's Dilemma, which again, I'm happy to share with you. I'll be able to share all these resources at the end so you have an idea. But the subtitle of the paper is Engaging and Retaining Employees in an Environment of Job Hopping, Quiet Quitting, and Remote Work. And so we're going to get into a little bit of this today. Probably not sharing anything you don't know, but hopefully being able to give you a new way to deal with it. So just a little bit of, for me personally, I think you build credibility as you go through and deliver value. But I wanted to at least give you a little bit of my background so I can explain how I kind of came about this. Career Factors actually started out when I was a school counselor. I was an English teacher and a school counselor for 21 years, and left that about 1.5 years ago to start a consulting company. And the way I came about Career Factors was actually helping students figure out what kind of jobs that they wanted to pursue after high school. I don't know if you remember your school counselor. The only reason I remember mine is because he was also my tennis coach. So we didn't really have a ton of interaction otherwise, and especially around which career direction should I choose. And so part of my, I guess, passion about career development and career satisfaction is I've seen for the past 20 years who's working for you and who's coming down the pipeline. And I don't think they're prepared, and I don't think most business owners are prepared. So I'm hopeful that this can be more helpful than what I did in counseling kids and trying to help them find their careers, is just to really get to know this generation that's coming on now. A very different one from even, I'd say, 10 years ago. probably 5, if you're thinking through this. So the state of disunion, I really talk about 3 different things. One is job hopping. I pulled this offline because it looks like a cool picture of kids jumping on these balls, but they are 100% 20-something males. And I thought, okay, this actually is really descriptive for this. But there's job hopping, and people just not really looking for careers in the sense of a one job commitment. They're not, or a one company commitment. And we're about a generation and a half away from that really being a reality, whether you want that to be the case or not. A lot of people have job interruption or changes in career, not because of their choice, but more and more people are looking for the next best thing outside of the walls of their current company. The next one is quiet quitting. And I liked this idea of this picture because when you get a disengaged employee, this is kind of where their head is whenever you're asking them to do their next job. They're somewhere else. And quiet quitting is something that is plaguing us because we don't see it coming. And so I have some suggestions for how do we sidestep that. And the last one is remote work. Oh, sorry. The last one is remote work. But it's this idea that a lot of times, especially the bigger the business, but even if you have a company that where you employ virtual assistants or other things like that, you may not meet very often or have ever met some of your employees. And some of the companies that I've worked with, their big struggle is what used to be kind of common engagement by proximity isn't working anymore. So I'm just going to pause real quick and ask how any of you have seen this in any of these 3 things, job hopping, quiet quitting, or remote work, how that's affected your business or your industry.
Remote work has definitely affected our communication and our team bonding. I feel like so we're bringing people back in more regular hours in the office.
How are they receiving that?
Yeah, depends on who it is. Some like the camaraderie, and some are still rebelling. Having a conversation with one of them tomorrow night.
Okay.
One of our leaders as well.
Wow.
Josh, you work totally remote.
Yeah, our company's fully remote as of like a year ago. So to help with that, we try to have we have twice a year on-site group gatherings. And then we really just hope that our hiring process fits our core values. So really just thinking how that process.
Was that a direction you were going anyway, or did COVID accelerate that? Or sorry, did COVID force that?
It accelerated it, yeah. And then because we're marketing, so you just get the best talent, throughout the United States. So it's kind of aspect as well.
Yeah. Anybody else feeling any of these in particular?
The quiet quitting is it's a little different than that. It's everybody's got dedication to side hustles that are that take away from what could be success in their primary role. It's they're distracted by all of the opportunity that Ubers and DoorDash and things like that have created. Selling your stuff on Poshmark or Etsy, yes. You can sell your name brand if you want to. I don't remember it on. So, I can't tell if we got quiet quitting or if we have just lack of motivation and need to make any money. I mean, they seem like they only have to work 4 days a week, so they've got migraines 1 day a week or stomach issues or something. They can't come to work for 1 day a week. So it's always like that.
Yeah, and that's the tough part is, especially after it's almost like companies are learning about their engagement problems after the fact. It's after people are leaving, or when you almost need that longitudinal data. Like, okay, now I'm starting to see this as a trend. It's not that this guy's a knucklehead. It's that this is a trend. Like, this is in the culture already, and that's a tough spot to be reactive to that.
And I feel like right now it's really hard to let someone go because they aren't disciplined enough to show up because you can't replace them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the devil you know over the one you don't, or the one you don't have. Yeah. We're owning. I mean, I think a lot of times I'll even work in particular industries because of my background in education. I've been working with a few school districts, and there are some industries that for years have kind of been used to this, and other industries that for years have thought they were immune to it. But it really is kind of coming across the board. So it's one of those things where if it's not affecting you, you can wait until it does, or you can do something about it. So I'm going to get into a little bit of what's broken about this and this old approach to engagement, because I think we need to kind of own that we're trying to solve. And again, this might not be everybody, but it's in general, business owners are trying to solve new engagement problems with old ways. And so it used to be more or less that you hired somebody to do a particular job, their talent and skill set lined up with your job description, and then you paid them somewhere north of the 50% mark for the industry standard, and you could kind of count on 5 or 10 years or so of them sticking around, of them being able to contribute, feeling like they were on the right seat on the bus. And so that we really looked at two different ways. We looked for engagement. We looked at, okay, I'm going to give you more things to do that are in your skill set, or I'm going to try to pay you more / give you more time off. But unfortunately, those two factors aren't working anymore, and for a couple of different reasons. One, if you're a business owner, you only have so much PTO and salary to give. Like you're playing a losing game. It's like when you look at someone who is trying to get into a new market and they said, oh, I'm just going to price out the people who are already there. Well, there's eventually going to be a bottom. In this case, there's eventually going to be a top for that. And the other part of it is even some techniques that have worked in the past around like team building and culture building that tend to be a little bit more external and kind of company wide. A lot of times, I think our employees are getting they're recognizing a token economy, and they're recognizing that, they get what's called reward satiation. Like it just doesn't do it for them anymore. And so we're stuck as business owners spinning our wheels to figure out, okay, I've got to think of the next thing. I've got to figure out the next thing that I can do to make these people happy. And so instead of playing darts, you've got to play darts with a dartboard that is as many employees as you have. Like you've got to get it right with all these different employees. And it's a lot of times just a guessing game. And so I'm suggesting a new way to approach career satisfaction. And I'm going to give you five different ways that if we do this differently, that changes our understanding of employee engagement, but also of our response to it. So one of them is that career satisfaction is an inside job. And so my basic premise here is that if career satisfaction is an inside job, it means I have, as an employee, at least some responsibility for how I feel about my job. And why this is so important for an employer is to be able to communicate to this and say, look, I'm not going to be able to always do this for you. You need to own some of this. And this is received a lot better by employers than employees. But one reason, when I work with employees, one thing I preach to them is, look, this is an empowerment move. This puts you more in the driver's seat than you realize, because you say, hey, guess what? I can do something about how I feel currently about my job, especially because the vast majority of employees don't really want to leave, because it's a pain in the rear to leave your job. They don't want to leave their jobs, but they would like to be happier in their jobs. And so step one is teaching employees that they have at least something of a role to play in their own career satisfaction. And my message then to business owners is to say, look, it's not all on you. You can't bear that burden and actually do what your business is built to do. You've got to be able to pass some of that responsibility off to it. And now this is done in a much more nuanced way than you probably feel like doing it sometimes, but it's there for sure. So that's tenet number one. Career satisfaction is an inside job. I'm going to go through the 5 and we can have a discussion, questions and all that sort of thing. But if as I'm going through, you want to holler and dive deep on something, feel free. So number two, the second tenet of this new approach to engagement is that there is a job to be done. And this is based in the jobs to be done theory. Has anyone heard of the jobs to be done theory? Do you know this one? Okay. You are super tiny, so I'm not seeing any hands, but there's a jobs to be done theory was popularized by Clayton Christensen, who wrote the book, How Will You Measure Your Life, which is a phenomenal book. It fits very nicely into mission statements and figuring out your own kind of core values for sure. But his research, actually the research that this was used in, he was called in by, I think it was McDonald's, and they asked him, they said, we want to know why 30% of our milkshakes are purchased before lunchtime every day. And there's a lot that you can say about that study and how problematic that is for a lot of different levels. But what he said is, what he found out was that in effect, the milkshakes were being hired to do a job for people who had commutes over 30 minutes. There was a job that they are hiring this milkshake to do, and it was to give them something to do. It was to entertain them. This is actually quite before podcasts, but anyway, it was something to engage them on their drive. And extrapolated to pretty much everything, he says, whatever we're doing, we are hiring that thing to do a job for us. There's something internal. And so one of the next steps in this career satisfaction series is that there's a job that each of your employees wants their job to do for them. The idea is that when we start a job as an employee, we are actually hiring it to do a job for us. There's something that we get out of it by being in that job. And I'd say this, it's very easy if you started a business or if you're running a business now, there's something in particular, there's a problem to be solved, but for employees, the problem is often internal. It's often that there's something that they want out of that job. And their goal or their key to career satisfaction is being able to scratch that itch. All right, so that's tenet number two, the job to be done. The next step, this is where it gets complicated, but where there's a lot of gold to mine, is that the employees don't know what the job is that they want to have done. No one has really taught them what itches they need to scratch as far as their career satisfaction. They don't know. And so when you are talking to employees, when you're using old models of, there's career advancement, there's more rewards as you climb that corporate ladder, and you still have people leaving, and you see it all the time, you're realizing that there's something more complicated and more complex in career satisfaction and career or employee engagement than we first realize. And when an employee doesn't even know what he wants out of his job, but he just knows that there's this general malaise, that's where job hopping is really easy. He just says, I'm out. If it's only these two factors, what I do every day and my lifestyle, how I get compensated as a result, it's really easy to say, I'm just going to go over here. Like the grass is greener over on this side. But as John Maxwell says, sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's over a septic tank. And you get there and realize this isn't like that hot either, right? And so when we just acknowledge that because we are human and a little bit more complicated than a two-factor career satisfaction, but there are other things at play here, then we start to be able to understand that there's more that we can engage our employees. There are more ways to engage our employees and even teach them about what it is that they're looking for in a career. And so when I do individual career coaching for people, we do what's called a resume rewind, and they often look back once they understand what they're actually motivated by. They look back 2 or 3 jobs ago and like, oh man, that one had it. Like I shouldn't have left that one. And so because they're going from spot to spot, looking at really external factors, they're looking at things that really seem like are important to them, but at the end of the day aren't. And so I'm going to encourage you guys to just consider that career satisfaction is just a little bit more complex than what we've been accustomed to making it. The fourth tenet is that employee engagement is not expensive unless you don't do it. All right. And so when I work with companies, the vast majority of times we see that the way to increase our engagement is usually through a common language and intentionality. It usually does not cost a ton of money to engage our employees more. It usually is kind of baked into the process of just being able to understand what everyone's here for. Why are we all here? I also enjoyed that this receipt is from when gas was $2.96. So I thought that receipt was helpful just to remind ourselves where we are. But I think a lot of times we avoid employee engagement because we're like, oh man, that's got to be expensive. It's going to take something, some sort of capital investment, or, it's going to cost us money because, our employees want, lunches, catered every day, like whatever it might be. We also always price ourselves out of something. And, but really employee engagement is actually pretty inexpensive. And the last one is that engagement and retention, they're responsive and not reactive. And so we talked earlier about, how do we take care of these like a problem like quiet quitting when we're only really getting lag indicators? Like we really only know it after it's happened. But if you do it right and you can build up a responsive employee engagement dynamic in your office, in your well, not offices in the case of remote work, then you build an opportunity to be responsive instead of just reactive. You can lead instead of just kind of be the follower of the trends that are happening. So anyway, those are the 5. It's a lot, and a lot of new ways to think about engagement, but I want to just pause for a second and ask for any questions.
I guess mine is Sam on that job to be done theory. How is that employer, can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
As an employer, how can I be proactive, I guess, in that area?
I think it kind of goes to that the old way of engaging was if you do what you're good at and you get paid well, then basically you should be grateful. Like that's do the job, right? But this generation of fewer workers and younger workers, they're looking for more from it. And so it's the idea of recognizing that unconscious to the employee is asking for something from the job, but again, is not aware that he or she is. And so one of the things that one of the reasons why the career factors assessment, which you guys are going to take in a second, is so effective is because it brings to the surface and names there's other things that we could be doing than just those two to be able to feel good about it. And so one way I think about this is I remember there's a woman I worked with, her name's Dawn, and she had the same job as 5 other people in our building. And she regularly flipped out. I mean, over seemingly mundane things. She was just an angry person. Unless you knew her outside of work, she was one of the nicest, most generous people I've ever met. And I started to think about this more. And if all 6 of them freaked out all the time, I would say, okay, there's something wrong with the job, right? But what it came down to is what she wanted from the job was to make an impact and to change people's lives. The other 5 people wanted to hang out with each other and get a paycheck. Because she is an impact-driven person, which is one of the career factors, we'll get to that in a second, it really drove her crazy, and then thereby those of us around her, to not be able to make that impact. And so the jobs to be done theory allows for 5 different positions, exact same job description, and have 5 different people in those seats motivated by totally different things, and that be awesome as long as those things are being met.
Thank you.
How do you go about implementing number one, having your employees take some responsibility, how they do it?
Usually by having somebody not named you tell them that. Because yeah, so yeah, my presentation to business owners is very different from my presentation to employees, which is basically like, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Like, I'll use Gary's name here. Gary's never going to get better. So if you're waiting around to feel better about your job until Gary gets better, it's not going to happen. You're going to need to just take some of that as your own. So my approach with employees is very much an empowerment approach, which is, hey, guess what? Like you own a little bit more of this than you realize. And that's a good thing. That's something that you should be super excited about because of what it allows you to be able to do. So if we can do the naming of the career factors and then give them a lens to say, hey, if you now know what's important to you, let's take a 15-minute walk around the building, right? Or even just in your mind, where might these things show up more for you? As soon as you give the employees a little bit of ownership of what their career factors are, now all of a sudden they say, wait a second, I actually know how I can make this work for myself rather than waiting for everything externally to work for me. I'm actually going to, I was trying to figure out where to put this. I kind of wanted to end with the career factors assessment for you guys so I could do Q&A more. But so I'm gonna just go ahead and say, let's just do that real quick. And then that way we can come back and maybe say, okay, where can we use it in these different ways? So let me just get to you guys getting an opportunity to get your CF3. And your CF3 for me are just your top 3 career factors. So we're going to do 5 minutes. And so my time, 3:06, we're going to get back together. And I'm just going to ask you to go to quiz.thecareerfactors.com. And you can do this on your phone or on your computer and take the career factors quiz. It's going to ask for your name and email. So that way you can get recommendations emailed to you. Unless you ask for it, you won't get another email from me. So don't worry about that. But I'm just going to ask you to go to quiz.thecareerfactors.com. And in 4.5 minutes, we're going to talk about your results and we'll have a context for maybe going back through those 5 different phases.
Yeah. Are you putting the S? Yeah, that's what I didn't do. I don't know.
Quiz.thecareerfactors.com.
Yes. Let me know if you're still getting an error. I'll give you a much less attractive URL.
Gary's website.
Everybody getting it, Gary?
It was sent out on the website. No, it was
No.
bad, it's bad.
Yeah, it's not.
It's old app.assessmentgenerator.com.
Assessment.
Yeah.
What is it?
app.assessmentgenerator.com. That was the new technique on the Sims website.
One more time.
Assessment engagement app.
Yep.
Assessment generator. What is that?
So because mine has an assessment on it.
You got a different link?
What's the assessment?
Yep, coming your way. I'm gonna email it to you right now.
Is it collecting votes? Yeah. You know, don't talk about it, just.
I'm thinking that's.
Is it career factors?
Yeah, sorry, I tried it just before I came on. Actually, my domain forwarding ended up not being as effective as I'd like. So I just sent you that link, Gary. If you want to just forward it to everybody who's in attendance, they can just click on it.
Did you put it in chat?
No, I emailed it to you.
Oh, you emailed.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Good. There it is. My computer wants to restart every time today. So it's app.assessmentgenerator.com/assessment 16400. I can forward.
16499. Yeah, if you just forward it to everybody who's there.
app.assessmentgenerator.com/assessment generator or assessment 16499. I'll forward it to you. Who has not got it? Do what? Jeff at Custom Tree?
No, it's J Custom TV.
Jay.
That's it.
Who else needs it? Brandon. Johnny. Anybody else? You need it, Mike? I think I got you. Jason, you need it?
Yeah. Amen.
Okay, just sent it to you. Oh, no. Anybody else? You got it, Johnny?
Yeah.
Luke, you got it?
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it now. They're deep in thought, so they must have. Yes.
Just nudge them every once in a while, make sure they're awake.
And I'm getting there. Says it can't get the recaptcha. Whatever it is. It's like, we are not even capturing this
No
shit.
advice.
Yeah. You have no career
That's the way
possibilities.
it's-
Try looking for a corner. Weird.
This is as quiet as they've been since all morning, since this morning. Got them deep in thought, Sam.
You guys need another minute, or everybody got their results?
Who has not got theirs yet done? Michael, you still on? Jeff, you got yours? Jason? Got one more finishing up there.
Yeah, no rush. Yep.
You good?
Thank you.
Everybody?
It's
Done. There's 2 minutes. Get 3 more. Need to concentrate. I'm working on it.
Is it an 8 acres? Right, that's what the movie.
Okay, I think we're good, Sam. We got it done.
All right, good stuff. Gary, am I screen sharing there or no?
You are not at this point.
All right, that's fine. All right, so now you've seen a little bit more. I get a little bit more into detail with what the other career factors are, because I want to basically be able to I don't know, sell you on the idea that engaging our employees is going to be a little bit more complex or nuanced than we have accounted for in the past, which I think is what's leading to a lot of the employee behaviors that we're seeing, disengagement, lack of retention, and then even hiring. Like how do you attract, how do you differentiate yourself from a noisy and pretty thin marketplace in terms of being able to find qualified candidates. So now that you guys have seen the 6, I'm going to just go through really quickly and talk about them and then ask you guys a couple of questions, have a little bit of a discussion on this, because I think it'll be helpful to understand how this might affect an employee, but also for you as business owners and leaders, how it can work as well. So we've got strengths and we've got lifestyle, right? We've got the kind of the two ends of that spectrum, the things that we've become accustomed to in understanding why employees work and what we can expect of them and maybe what they can expect of us. But in the middle there, the 4 factors that are added can be a little bit maybe obvious on their face, but they certainly aren't incorporated into much of what we do, not on a regular basis, I think, or maybe not even in the ways that we do them. So one of the other career factors areas is impact. And for some people, that job to be done for them is that they want to have something of an impact because of the work that they do, whether they are on an assembly line or they're doing social work. For them, that is a really big deal. Okay, they want their job to matter to somebody else, and so that's something to be aware of. That is really important to measure for some people. For others, it's the ability to have personal and professional growth. They want to be able to be better because of where they are. They want to be able to develop because of where they are at their job. Another one is in their working environment. Okay, for them, for those people who value working environment, they need the space around them to be a particular way in order to get the best out of them, to do their best work. And then lastly, it's relationships. And relationships, I used to just think about it as colleagues, but there's that vertical alignment of relationships as well that says it does matter to me who I work for. It matters the people who are around me. They will make or break my job. Now, some of you, as you hear me describe them, you're thinking, well, why does that matter? All that shows is that, let's say it's working environment. Like, who cares about working environment? And that's kind of one for me. That's not a huge deal for me. But for you, that just shows that your working environment is just lower down on your list of career factors, right? Maybe it's for you, your top 1 or 2 are going to be like really, really significantly higher up than some of these other ones. It doesn't make any of these things that we're talking about they don't really necessarily tell us how someone's going to do their job. It tells us what they're looking for out of their job, and how if you and I have the same job, and for you, lifestyle and colleagues or relationships is really high up there, and that those are being met for you, and I'm big on impact and growth, and those are being met for me. We could be doing the same exact job for different reasons, still do a great job at those tasks, and be able to be happy, and you more or less likely to be looking elsewhere as we go through that. So hopefully that rounds out a little bit of that jobs to be done theory, and the idea that if you can empower somebody with their CF3, all of a sudden now they have a lens for seeing their job. They have a lens for seeing their working environment, their relationships all around them. And if they can recognize that it exists, they're more likely to do something about it. Any questions about your results? Anything that you got, like, okay, like, what does this mean for me as a business owner, or what does this mean for me as somebody who's a leader in my company? Or literally, what does this mean? Which could also be one of your questions.
Mine was strengths and impact. It didn't surprise me. It didn't, being the business owner, I want things to matter.
Yep. Were there, here's something I often will pose then to the business owner. Are there ones that are lower down, like maybe your number 5 and 6, that are taking a fair amount of your time, even though you don't really care about them? You don't have to answer that, but like,
yeah, I mean, environments like, but we're a small remote agency, so environment's kind of like, as far as what's around me.
Yep.
So colleagues is a little higher than I thought, and so that goes back to maybe pay attention to the culture.
Yeah. I do care about people after all. Who knew?
I just don't want to pay for office. So.
Well, so think about that as well. This is my bent typically. Like if I'm going for these impact my mission statement, the business whole thing. But if I'm going to hire people who are environment, lifestyle, and colleagues, I can't. They can't be unimportant to me if those employees are important to me. I can't poo-poo them. I can't say like, oh, who cares? Suck it up, whatever. Even if I'm not saying it out loud, I've got to recognize now. Okay, if I've got somebody who's with what's on the screen, who's in a working environment, a lifestyle, and a relationships person, I've got to come alongside them. This is how you build in retention. I've got to come alongside them and help them see where those factors can be met in our current environment. Yeah. But if they're not there, then now I'm going to help them manufacture it. Let's figure out how to make that happen so that you're happy because I like the work that you're doing. Anyone else have a career factors result that either surprised them or that they're not really sure what to do with?
I've got one that I'm not surprised a bit at. My environment was at 20, but as a business owner and a sales guy and you're straight commission, you don't give a crap if you're working at your house or in a library or wherever. I have a nice office with a bar in it now, don't get me wrong, but it's my forever office at 57. So anyhow, but still, it's, some folks can't, especially after this COVID thing, and people want to work from home, and I get that. Some people can be very productive, others cannot. I mean, I know people that get a PO box because they have to get out, and they're salesmen. They have to get out every day, it makes them get dressed, get out of their boxers, and go get their mail at a PO box so they can engage in their day-to-day. I don't have to have that to be motivated.
Yeah. And you see that. Go ahead.
My impact was 95. Growth was, I care. Growth was 84. Relationship 65. Strengths 55. Lifestyle 50. I don't like it when salespeople go and ride their damn bike. They're supposed to be at work doing things they shouldn't be. And go ride your bike. I don't have anything against that, but don't do it on my time.
Yep.
Or if you're gonna do that, work evenings and get your time in. I'm not a micromanager.
As long as
I'm
they
not
do 18
the
hours
in that.
Yeah.
Or just whichever hand.
You can ride a bike.
Well, boss used to tell me, hey, you can have as much vacation as you want as long as you make your number.
Yeah.
There you go. As long as they do. You don't get it. And I really don't. Other customers are bad.
Sam, here's a good one for you. How do we take, you kind of mentioned this, but I want to come back to it. The things that bug us as business owners, as leaders, but the only thing is, it's the things that are their highest on their score, their CF.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that dynamic? Because to be quite honest, for us, it's like, no, we don't want that. You kind of heard, like Mike said there, don't do it on my time, on your time, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, there's two different approaches to this, and why these phases aren't sequential. They just are the different ways that you can use these and how. And I think a lot of times we think about engagement and assume that engagement will naturally lead to a retention, but there's a lot in the retention section of, well, how can we develop a company culture? How can we be able to reduce the power dynamic that exists, not that there shouldn't be in terms of an employee and an owner or a supervisor, but just make it so it's not, this is why the quiet quitting is happening so much. It's because there's zero connection between, in a hierarchical structure between the supervisor and the owner and the employee. It's so the employee side of it is, it's always going to be, this person tells me what to do and then tells me how I did it wrong. Like that's, very generalized response to it. But one of the things that I think you can do when you know what someone else's is, it's frankly, it's kind of like my kid, when he tells me about his Pokemon cards, I don't care. I mean, I just don't. Okay. But I love my kid. So I'm going to he's going to tell me about, okay, great. That's awesome. Cool. Yes. You've got this. What? In that way, we can kind of come alongside our employees who have wildly different career factors than we do, and kind of be a coach to them to say, hey, that's great. If these 2 or 3 are kind of your drivers, I'll help you continue to scratch those itches, figure out how to get those career factors needs met. And in the end, it's like the old Zig Ziglar quote, you help enough people get what they want and you'll get what you want. In the end, I can really strengthen that relationship because I'm for 30 minutes a quarter caring about what they care about. Then it's no longer the quiet quitting is happening because the managers don't know their people. And that's usually for a larger company, but it's so much a transaction relationship, not a transformational one. There's no give and take between the people. So one of the ways, Gary, is to come alongside as a coach rather than a supervisor and just talk through these different motivators for career satisfaction. The other one is to hire people who have the same career factors. And so when we talk about integrating career factors into your hiring process, now you can actually just pre-screen or bring them in, onboard them in a way that allows them to know what makes them tick and where this exists in your company already. So you're building retention into the hiring process.
Yeah, I like that because that fits with, I think, a Gallup and one of their polls, I won't say it was their last one, but one of them that's out there saying is employees want more managers or leaders that as their direct boss to be more coaches than to just be their boss. They want that coaching, and that's where development comes from too. People want to be developed. A lot more people, you'll see that hire on some with that growth side. And I appreciate that. Go ahead, Jeff.
Of your back to the last section, we talked about the 5 new ways, the new approaches. Or number 1, number 2, they kind of seem like a little bit. Am I getting like a little tough love, a little parenting, a little bit with some of them? I got a lot of young people. Sometimes they just need to be told, this is what you're supposed to do. This is your purpose. This is because they can't figure out themselves.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, because the thing that you're telling them will make them more successful, right? It's not. It isn't the parenting part that they didn't sign up for, right? Just like they didn't sign up to be somebody's kid, So there's a little bit of that I like the coaching side, and the thought of the best parenting often is coming alongside somebody as a coach. One of my with one of my kids, especially because he's old enough, he's 12. I can kind of say, hey, remember you told me this was your goal? Is that still your goal? Great. If that's the case, let's figure out how this plan to get there. That common and that shared kind of terms of engagement for why we're all here in the first place can lead to some of that, because there's a layer deeper of why you're here and what you can do to move yourself forward in this can be the case. Sometimes there is a tough love part, But I think if it's couched in something that's a little bit more employee centric, like I understand, hey, guess what? Like we're motivated by different things. That's actually what makes this interesting. Instead of we're all the exact same person, then they can. I think it's received better.
We've been in business for 25 years. It's a stark difference. The kids I hired 20 years ago to today, there's a lot of different emotional issues
Mm-hmm.
distract them from their daily focus. And I don't know how to, I mean, it's stuff I can't even hardly relate to. Any other tips on that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Hey,
Yeah, it's fine. It's getting to the personal. One reason why I like career factors is because it gets to the personal in a work context. It's not. I am super not interested in other people's feelings. Like it's great, good for you, but I am very interested in their internal motivators, and you can learn a lot about somebody. And what's also very interesting, like one reason why I think it's important for that you guys took this is so that you can now have that reciprocal relationship. That again, that power imbalance really can constrict and shut down people rather than open them up. So being able to come alongside and coach them, and for some cases they need a parent. Like so some people, we've gone from like the helicopter parents to the snowplow parents. I call them the Zamboni parents. I mean, like you get this whole thing of like, you've never had a problem in your life until then you had to start making your own life, or you've had a lot of problems in your life and you don't really know how a construct for how to deal with it. Being able to have a conversation around things that are not all external, but that still apply to work means you don't have to be a counselor. You can be a coach to say, there's ways that I can help you reach your goals. And that's almost like that mentor exercise that Gary talked about earlier that had you guys do. That there's certain key people. Work can be the best place to develop mentorship, and that scores really high for retention as well. Gary, I want to honor your time, but also be helpful. So I'm around as long as you need me.
You're fine. He's a D, isn't he? Strong D. Any other questions?
My top three were all 100s.
Go ahead and ask him. I don't know.
So my top three are top 100%.
Yeah, I mean, your top three are the places you hang out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all, because I think they all fit really well together. That's why I call them the CF3, because it is that should be your main your three drivers are going to be there. There's nothing wrong with that at all, because when you really see them all come together, then there's a lot of power behind them. What were they?
A lot of power, impact, relationships, and lifestyle.
Nice. Yeah, that can show up in a lot of different ways. What's really fun is when you get to coach your employees and really get into like, what does impact mean for you? Because that might be something like, for me, impact, one of the key ways I measure impact is scale. Like I'm okay with being a mile wide and an inch deep, because I want to hit as many people as possible, let them take it down if they want. Other people, it's like they want super deep impact with a few people, like even just figuring out that next step for yourself. Well, what does that even mean to me? How can I own this in a way that is meaningful? And so that's an activity I do with individual career coaching. Like, let's sit down and write out a page about what impact is, what lifestyle is for you, because then that clarifies your goals.
Sam, if they wanted to, like with the career factors, one of the things that's changing, and we've talked about that some, is, and you kind of mentioned it too, that there's not as many employees. It's basically that simple. The amount that's going out of the workforce, the boomers is the largest generation. There's smaller generations coming in. And even as some of us, we've been business owners a while, the marketplace is changing, so we have to change to it. Is there any suggestions? Of course, I believe in what you talked about with coaching and with career factors, being able to take a look at that. that you can suggest to them to kind of help get started in that path?
You mean in terms of attracting candidates?
Attracting and keeping the ones that are in the new ones coming in.
Yeah, I think the new ones coming in, I've had a number of conversations with people about the places where they stayed the longest and where they felt the most value. And it was an onboarding process or induction process, whatever that might be, that was both external and internal for the employee. It wasn't just about what the job was. Like, I think you should find out pretty early on what to do to get fired. So like, check those boxes, definitely. But the internal part of it as well, of being able to, if you have certain things, like if you're interested in personal growth, here's what we offer for personal growth. Like these types of things that are programmatic through bringing on a new hire. That really signals to them that there's an investment in them, and that they're more likely to stay as well. I'm working with a couple of guys in talent acquisition. I'm trying to codify for the hiring process in terms of finding candidates right now that can include some of this language in it to, as I said before early on, how do you differentiate yourself from other industries, or sorry, other companies in the industry that you're in, or even other industries where you're competing for people. Some of these a little bit more elaborate or a little bit more nuanced approaches to finding the right people, even just having this as an assessment to say, we want to get a good fit. It makes for a much more interesting interview than them asking how much they get paid and how much time they have off, and you asking them how long they're going to stay. It's a little bit more elegant than kind of a more straightforward process there. So yeah, that's the part two. I'm also looking for a way to get this into career and technical schools and then college counseling offices, just so we can get more people coming out into the workforce who actually know what they want and know what motivates them.
Good. With that, Sam, with that engagement dilemma, I think you said you were renaming it on that side of it.
Yep.
With them filling out this, will you be able to send that, or would you like me to send their emails?
Yeah, I'll do a bunch of different ways. No, I mean, I'll send you a bunch of stuff, Gary, like so I can make sure that's there. They should have in their results, if any of you guys want to follow up and talk shop on this for a while about your specific companies, happy to do that. There's a link to schedule a call in that email. At least there should be. I went back on where we're on our break, Gary, and all of my domain forwarding, including my actual website, has been reset through GoDaddy. So I'm just going to send you a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, why not? But yeah, the white paper and then my email, make all that stuff available to you guys. If you have follow-up questions, or if there are particular situations you want to talk through, happy to offer that.
Great. And then the last question I have for you is, they don't know it yet, and I haven't even read it yet, but I know it's going to be so good that we're going to make it probably our second book of the month for our book club next year. We're going to have our first one. We're going to hit the health end, come in on your side, I think, on the second book. So your book's going to be Am I Thriving? So can you share a little bit of what they're going to get when they read that book? Because it's going to be
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Why aren't you thriving? So it is intentionally a little bit provocative. So, it is a compilation of 39 interviews that I did on my podcast with guys from all walks of life. But the real premise behind it was the story really that started this was I was in my early 30s. And I remember my wife asking me, she said, I don't mean anything by this, but is this as good as it's going to get? And
what's wait though? She's got
so here's the actual question. She said, I just thought it was going to take longer because we had a nice house. I had a good job. We liked our church. We just had our first kid. And, both of us came from not a lot. And so she's like, I just thought it would take longer, be harder. And what I started realizing at the time is we had gotten to good enough really fast. But at the same time, I could fast forward 40 years and pretty closely predict my life. And that was not inspiring to me at all. And I was like, man, there's got to be more to what we're doing. And so I don't know how to get there, but we sat down and kind of hammered out 7 core areas that I think that we are able to thrive in, called to thrive in, whatever it is. So I went and found a bunch of guys who were knocking it out of the park in one of those areas, because nobody's doing them all 7, in one of those areas, and interviewed them and then threw it into a book. And so it's really a journey through these 7 core areas. I find most people are really doing well in, let's say, 2 of them. And there's a couple that they're neglecting because, for a lot of reasons. But my premise is one of those that you're neglecting might be the thing that's actually holding you back from really ultra success in the ones where you're already experiencing it. So cool stories of people who have walked through this journey. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. So if when you get the book, there's an assessment. I like assessments. So there's an assessment, and my encouragement to you is to not read the whole book. So you're welcome in advance. But you read the chapter or 2 that you think you really could use some work on. Career is a big part of it. I think career is an entry point for us for a lot of awesome stuff in our lives. And so we dive into career there as well.